You are now listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias, and welcome to the UMM Engaged Clipper chat room. UMM's career talk show featuring alumni, employers, and career professionals from around the state of Maine, region, and country. My name is Joellen Scribner, and I will be your host for this program. If you would like to ask a question of our guest today, please feel free to call the station at 207-255-1240. Today's alumni guest is Brian Getchell, who is joining us live today from the UMM radio station here on campus. Brian graduated from the University of Maine in Machias in 2015 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Recreation and Tourism Management, and he's currently working as a ranger for the Maine Forest Service. Thank you for joining us today, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
So first, let's start, Brian. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career with the Maine Forest Service.
So, as you said before, I graduated here from UMM in 2015. I was an environmental recreation and tourism management major with a concentration in natural resources. I grew up in Washington County. I still live in Washington County, and I patrol Washington County. It's a great place to live, and I love working here.
So you're patrolling all of Washington County, which is the size of Rhode Island, as we know. So that's a pretty big territory.
We cover about 1 million acres a day.
Wow. Go ahead.
We travel all over. We have state jurisdiction, but my patrol area is mainly Washington County. My office is out of Jonesboro.
So you have a large territory that you cover.
Yeah.
So tell us about your experiences at UMM that helped you to find what career path you decided you wanted to follow. I
knew at a young age that I wanted to be in law enforcement, and I just hadn't decided what branch of law enforcement I wanted to go into. While I was here, I did an internship with the Forest Service my junior and senior year, and there was a lot of aspects of the Forest Service that I enjoyed. I was on a local fire department at the time, and I enjoyed fighting fire, and I got to see the Forest Service as not only a law enforcement agency, but also as a wildland firefighting agency, and that drew me because it was best of both worlds. I got to fight fire, and I got to do law enforcement.
Great. So was there anything in particular about the Maine Forest Service that made you want to work for them? I mean, you said you did an internship, which was great, and had you tried other agencies first, or was this just something that you were really dedicated to right at the beginning?
I knew with the wanting to do law enforcement and then the learning about the fire aspect, that kind of drew me mostly. There's a lot of opportunities to go out west and stuff like that to fight fire and help other states, and I enjoyed doing that. So I just really liked the Forest Service was the best option for me.
Sure.
I could see myself doing probably some of the other agencies, but just the fire aspect and the conservation law enforcement is what drew me to the Forest Service.
Great. So what kind of background or training or special programs or other learning experiences does a person need to enter the field?
I think that if you have a fire background, it helps. But you don't have to have that. You can learn all the fire and the aspects of the job. You need to be dedicated to be a law enforcement officer. It's you can learn how to do it, but it's something that you're going to have to do. It's not only fighting fire, but it's also law enforcement work. So it's a mixture of things that you need to do. There's a lot of the training is on the job, so you don't really need a lot of it beforehand, but it helps if you do have it beforehand. You're kind of a step ahead of the game, a step ahead of other people, but most of your job you're going to learn in your field training. You're going to be with another ranger. You're going to learn most of the stuff. You're going to go to law enforcement academy. You're going to have a ranger academy. So most of the stuff you're going to be taught on the job.
So you're talking about, fighting fires. There's also the law enforcement aspect of it. What is there land management with it as well? Is that all part of the fire aspect of it?
We don't do a lot of land management. Most of it is our mission is wildfire law enforcement, wildfire control, natural resource law enforcement, incident management, disaster response. So any of those types of things that we do as an agency. Our primary mission is fire. wildfire control and fire laws in the state of Maine, but we also do other natural law enforcement, including all timber harvest laws in Maine. Anytime someone has a cuts of wood commercially, we go out and inspect that and look for violations.
Mm-hmm.
We help out the warden service with ATV and snowmobile enforcement. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of aspects to the job, but most of it is fire related.
Mm-hmm. So when you were here at UMM, did you take specific classes, or were there extracurricular activities that you found that were instrumental in helping you prepare for your career, whether it be for leadership or whether it was skills that you learned within your courses or anything like that helped prepare you?
I think the outdoor leadership classes helped a lot. There were some other classes where you learn just basic outdoor skills of canoeing and map and compass, search and rescue, things like that help you be woods wise and get you out there in the woods and you feel comfortable being out. And our job, we're in the woods all the time. Basically, you have a patrol vehicle and that's your office, and you're out looking for violations and things like that.
So you really have to have a comfort level of it being out in the woods.
Yeah.
Great. So what kind of skills or knowledge should an individual have to pursue a career with the Maine Forest Service? And we kind of touched on that a little bit anyways, but I'm thinking, when I'm looking at our students in different, and whether it's in the environmental studies program here and the rec program, and are there specific law classes or anything else like that would help them be prepared to get out there and work for the Forest Service?
Yeah, if they had experience with law enforcement, or they had long classes that would help them. A lot of that stuff they'll get at the academy when they go.
Mm-hmm.
But just having a general idea of map and compass, canoeing, how to operate equipment. ATVs, snowmobiles, we're on those a lot with our jobs. Stuff like that would help them, so when they get on their career path, that they can just build upon those skills.
And were you involved in any of the trail maintenance or anything out back when they were doing that originally, when we had those the land donated to the university? I mean, chainsaw. You got to know how to run a chainsaw,
you got to run a chainsaw,
right? And do that safely, and how to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So is there any advice you would give someone just entering the field, maybe something that you wish someone had mentioned to you when you were first starting out?
I think that you need to be flexible. When we sign on, you never know where you're going to have during the day. It's pretty unpredictable. You could start on one side of the state and end your day in a different side of the state, or even in a different state. So be flexible, be willing to adapt to changes, and you sometimes you're going to be told what to do, and you have to accept that. You have a supervisor, and just be flexible.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about your territory being mostly Washington County, but you could be called to another county. Is what you're talking about, to support them for whatever happening, if there was a fire or something like that. So that would be something that's very spontaneous, and that you just have to just go in and support another county, just like they'd come in and support you.
Yeah. You may have to go help other rangers in northern Maine. So it means you could end up anywhere, wherever there's fires or anything like that.
Okay. So what kind of lifestyle choices did you have to make to work for the Maine Forest Service?
I think you have to have a good head on your shoulders. Obviously, there's some extracurricular activities that when you go through the hiring process, they're going to look for. You obviously can't use drugs, stuff like that. If you're in law enforcement, they're going to look for that. You're going to have a polygraph. So you have to have a clean record, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and also I think the fact too, when we're talking about lifestyle is, just the flexibility of it. Because, it's not like you're going to go to an office 8 to 5 every day and that's going to be it, and you go home. That it could be extra hours, weekends. We've talked about that, and I know you'll talk a little bit more about that in the next segment, but it could be holidays. It could be all those things that you need to
Yeah, exactly. We have a schedule that we go by, but you mean if you get called out after hours, there's you're on call. So we work a shift, and after your shift is over, you're still on call. So you could get called out after hours to go to an incident, complaint, a fire, something like that, and you have to be ready to roll.
I guess I have to mention this, and we didn't talk about this before, but you actually came to our rescue one night too, out to our camp, when somebody was playing the fireworks out there, and we, it caught woods on fire. So you were able to come up to where our camp was and to help us out that evening.
Yeah,
so that was
and
great.
that was a holiday at 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
So you never know where you're gonna end up.
Out in the woods, and it's just there. It was quite surprising. So we appreciated that help.
You're welcome.
So do you anticipate employment in this field to grow or decrease or maybe remain stable? I mean, I know sometimes with state agencies, and we never know what the budgets are going to be, and, the university is in those same kind of parameters too. So how is the field of growth for the Maine Forest Service?
I believe that we're going to be hiring for the years to come. We have some individuals that are going to be ready to retire, and we're going to have to fill those positions. So I foresee in the future we're going to be hiring probably every year.
Which is great. So has your work experience differed very much from what you imagined it would be? And if so, in what way?
I think just going into any job, you don't really know what to expect. But you got to be flexible. I never realized the opportunities that you'd have in the field. Like I said before, the ability to go on fire assignments out west or anywhere in the country, or go to disasters, natural disasters, anything like that. We mobilized to California this year. I believe we sent engines to North Carolina. So, stuff like that.
So that had to be pretty scary, maybe the first time that you did it, I would think. I mean, for myself, I think, oh boy, we're going into an unknown territory and we're going to help fight this fire, but such a wonderful support throughout the country that the Maine Forest Service does, not only within the state and the counties, but, out in the country, which is really great.
Yeah, exactly. And people appreciate the help, and it's a good opportunity to go out, and if you see a fire in California that's, say example, if it was 250,000 acres and then you have a 1 acre fire in Maine, it's not that big of a deal anymore. And it gives a lot of people training opportunities that they would never have here in Maine to be able to go out and help another state.
So when you're going to, like an out-of-state support like that, you might be gone for 3 weeks. You don't know exactly the time limit always. Is that correct?
Generally, they're a 2-week assignment. Mm-hmm. So you're generally it's about 18 days with travel. You figure a couple days of travel on each side, and then you're assigned to an incident generally for 14 days.
Mm-hmm. An opportunity to see the rest of the country, but not its best state always.
Yeah.
So what major satisfactions did you derive from working in this field, do you think? What do you feel is satisfying about this job?
I enjoy helping people. Sometimes you see people at their worst, but I believe it's good to go out and help people and try to make a difference in what's going on.
So what personal qualities or abilities are important to be successful in this job, do you think?
Like I said before, you're in law enforcement, so honesty, integrity, good core values, being flexible is I can't preach that enough. You never know what you're going to end up doing, but every day is different.
I think too, probably, we talk about fires and things like that, but really, in the leadership area, having good people skills. Being able to interact with people from various walks of life, and, some of them, obviously, not maybe from here from Washington County, but they might be from another area in the state, or they might be from another area in the country. So you're getting to know a lot of people from a lot of different areas. So I imagine that good people skills is really important in this
Definitely.
job too.
not only, I mean, you got to go to your complaints and be able to communicate with people and communicate effectively. Also, writing, there's a lot of reports. You got to be able to write your reports and have that stuff. So there's a lot of aspects to the job.
Right. So, when you were talking about reports, and I didn't really write that down, but in this type of job, I think that, a lot of people look at it like, there are fun aspects of it, but they don't think about there is actually the report that you have to do for everything that's happening out there that could be scrutinized on another level. So you really got to have good writing skills too.
Yeah. Everything that you do needs to be documented, and every time we go to an incident, they start a card for it, and you have a report for that.
Mm-hmm. So what part of the job do you find most satisfying?
I enjoy helping people. I like the satisfaction of being able to help people and just make their days better than they were.
Right. So, if they've had a problem or something, you're able to actually step in and help them figure out what are the next steps to get that fixed.
Exactly.
If they've lost 10 acres of land, due to a fire, you're able to help them sort through that perhaps and actually take them to the next level so that they're able to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most challenging? I can think of some things that might be the most challenging from what you've already said, but what's most challenging for you?
Sometimes you're going to miss functions. You're going to miss family events. Going back to the whole being flexible with the job, you may miss 4th of July or something if you get called out to something. Generally, it's pretty good. You get to go to stuff, but sometimes you're going to have complaints or you're going to have calls where you have to go and you're going to miss things at home. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most challenging things. But it doesn't happen all the time. It's just part of the job. With any job you have, there's going to be sacrifices, and sometimes you're going to miss things.
And I think that in a lot of our service-oriented jobs, like, if it's our electrical companies and it's, we've lost power, then they're out on the job trying to do it just like you're trying to do it, or the warden service, or if there are search and rescue operations or anything like that is going on. It isn't like a designated time that these things are going to happen around those things. So people, like you say, have to be flexible and willing to make that sacrifice.
Definitely.
In order to be able to.
Your family will
help.
learn to be flexible with you.
Yeah.
You may plan on being home at 5 o'clock to end your shift, and you get home and you get called out. It's just something that could happen.
Right. So if you could do things all over again, what would you choose? The same path for yourself?
Definitely. I love being a forest ranger. I love being out in the woods. I love helping people in my community and trying to help people with the complaints that we go to. The fire aspect really drew to me, and I really still enjoy fighting fire and all those aspects. So I wouldn't change anything. I love the career path I've taken, and I look forward to what the future will bring.
So we've still got a little bit of time left in this segment, Brian. Do you mind if we just talk a little bit about the program that you went through here at UMM?
Sure.
And the REC program. So there was many courses, with the hands-on opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those courses that you found valuable, whether it be the St. John trip because it built your wilderness skills, or maybe the search and rescue class, or tell us a little bit about those courses that you took.
Yeah, I was involved in the St. John trip, which was canoeing the St. John River for 10 days. You stayed right there on the river every night. I think that there's a lot of, camping, just being able to survive on your own. You had to cook your own meals. You had to navigate the river, stuff like that you can use as life skills and to build upon things that you might already have. Outdoor recreation class, we did canoeing, hiking, things like that, where you can learn map and compass, those aspects, which if you have say search and rescue, if you're looking for someone or you're trying to pinpoint where a fire might be, you may have to read a map or try to find something. So all those skills are good to have, and you'll use them if you have this career.
So you also, as I recall, were in the emergency medical responder for recreation safety and first aid. So as a law enforcement, you could be the first on a scene of an incident. So have you found that course to be beneficial to you? Have you used those skills out in the field, like first aid, that
Yeah,
type of
yeah,
stuff?
definitely. I mean, you never know what you're going to come across. You could be in a remote area and help's a long ways away. So CPR, first aid, all that stuff is great knowledge to have, and you're definitely going to use it on the job.
Great. So now there was a programming course at one point in time. I found that to be very beneficial for a lot of our alumni. Do you find any of the aspects of the programming class something that you might have, those skills that you developed in it, useful on the job for you now? I mean, whether it be moving traffic or, those kind of safety things and stuff. Just in programming, we talk about, the aspects of the stages of different things that are happening. So if you take that and you merge those type of skills over, even if it's not the exact same thing, you're still learning kind of the systems of the way that things should flow, whether it be, if you've got traffic going by that's in the middle of a fire and you've got to direct traffic, or, if you're running a program. It's the same type of staging.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps build upon, if you go to an incident, you got to be the leader of that incident, and you have to manage that incident from the beginning to the finish. So I believe that programming class helped you to say, this is what I need to do now, and take it in steps, so that and the outcome of this is going to be a good outcome.
I would think that I was probably the instructor in that class, wasn't I, Brian?
You were.
I had to bring that up. Okay, so, but also, the extracurricular things that you were involved here on campus. And so tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what did you do that was outside the classroom that might help you build those leadership skills and just the things you were involved in? Were you in Mr. Pass or any of the outing club or anything like that?
I was a teacher's assistant, which helped me, I believe, get leadership skills and helped me to be more open to talking to other people, and kind of it got me out of my comfort zone a little bit. You have to teach this, and there's a lot of aspects of our job where we have to teach firefighters and different skills where
you're actually designing and developing that curriculum, so to speak, that they're going to have to pass on to somebody else. So here you are, a teaching assistant, meaning that you have to take the skills that you've learned in all those classes, and now you're going to apply it into, as a teaching assistant.
Yeah,
so you were helping get the equipment ready, the safety aspects of it.
Yep, and there's a lot of that we have to do. We have to train our firefighters. We have to maintain our equipment, stuff like that. So if you can... I'm more of a visual learner, so I like to teach that way. But if I can sit someone down and say, this is how you start a pump, let them go do it, stuff like that. Same as using a chainsaw, stuff like that. Then or a first aid kit you might have in your truck.
Exactly. Or you must have some kind of pack that, I think in the search and rescue, I know for myself when I was taking that class, I had 3 of everything in it, so I could barely carry it through the woods, let alone drag it. I overdid it. But, just taking that skill of knowing what you have to put in there to prepare yourself, and apply it in another area.
Yeah.
So you also were an athlete.
Yep.
Yeah, and you played ball for UMM. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I played basketball for 4 years. It helped keep me in shape. I think that with sports, you also leadership. You have to work with teammates. You got to be a team player. So a lot of those things are you develop relationships, and you know you learn how to work with everyone that's different. There's everyone learns differently. Everyone responds to different methods. So it kind of gives you hey, this guy may not like visual learning, but this guy does. It kind of gives you it makes you kind of have a more broad spectrum, and so everyone's different and everyone learns differently, and everyone you come across is going to be different. It's
really, like you say, developing those skills. You play basketball in high school, you play 4 years with those people, and also probably before that in high school. So for a lot of years, and then you come in and you have a whole bunch of people coming in from a whole different areas and things like that. And so now you've got to take those skills and apply them into a new, even though it's the same game, you've really got to take those leadership skills and those skills that you have developed on the court and maybe make adjustments and be a little bit more flexible on the court, which might be helpful in that flexibility you're talking about on the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you have new coaches, everything like that. You think of your basketball coach as your supervisor in life. You mean if you can respect him and you may not always agree with them, but you can work things out amongst each other, and it's those skills that you can learn.
All right, well, great. So that concludes the alumni portion of the UMM Engage Clipper chat room today. I want to thank Brian Getchell for joining us. Please stay on with me as we get ready to talk with Brian again on the employer part of our chat room of our show. So today you are listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias. We will be right back shortly with the second half of our show.
There's another level and you will be there if you keep on reaching for that new happiness is in our hearts, heaven lie within our minds. Draw our pictures in the sands, make a prayer for our times, cool the nerves of tangled tribes. We are human beings becoming, struggle rise within ourselves. We don't need no creed to be kind. You know now, we are the ones we seek. We have now the life we need to change. Eyes wide open and minds awake, circle around with the human race. Let's calm the drama of our minds, heal the violence inside. You know now, we are the darkness. Turn the wheel around your face. You are neon on your mirror. We are growing all the time. You know now we are the ones we seek. Come on now, we'll be the change you seek. Peace to the world and all the people. Peace to the world and all the people. Peace to the world and all the people. Peace to the world and all the people.
Eleventh hour, you've come to be my friend. Your timing is so familiar. You show up in just the nick of time, bringing me gifts of life. I don't mind saying I am getting scared. I usually hear you knocking by now, but you're not anywhere. This isn't fair to me, but I can't lie. I love you. I'll wait.
Welcome to the UMM Engage Clipper chat room. Today we are talking with Brian Getchell, alumni of UMM from 2015. He is currently a ranger for the Maine Forest Service. So now we're going to talk about job opportunities. And Brian is here kind of representing the agency in that. So we'll see what we can get from Brian from that today. So anyways, so welcome again, Brian. Tell us a little bit about the careers in the Maine Forest Service. We've talked a little bit about your career. So tell us what other opportunities are available for them.
The Forest Service has field rangers like I am, and then there's opportunities to move up in the agency. We have sergeants, lieutenants, and then there's chief ranger, which is he's a supervisor for everyone. There's within the Forest Service, there's also different committees. So like we have honor guard, we have a MARC committee, which is like mechanisms of arrest, restraint, control, an EVOC committee, which is an emergency vehicle operation. There's a weather committee, a fire investigation committee, just things like that where you can kind of specialize in something else other than your normal everyday duties.
Mm-hmm. So now we have a 911 dispatch. Do they have their own, I don't know if you'd call it dispatch, but do they have their own unit that is the dispatch unit for the Maine Forest Service? Or does it come out of the 911 system that we have in the state?
Yeah, so we're dispatched with every other agency through the Bangor, my region's through Bangor Barracks, so it's the state police barracks. They dispatch all the law enforcement agencies.
Okay. So what is the actual hiring process like?
it's kind of a long process. Where we are a law enforcement agency, there's a lot of things that you have to go through, background investigations, polygraph, stuff like that. So when we look for a candidate, it's posted online, maine.gov, and there's a packet of stuff on there that you can go by. You have to have an associate's degree to apply, or you have to have any degree which includes 15 hours of natural sciences, or if you can have 2-year combination of direct related education and training experience. So sometimes if they don't have a degree but they've been in a field that could relate to this, then they'll accept that as...
So experiences apply.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to be at least 21 years old when you graduate the Criminal Justice Academy. You can be 20 years old and have an associate's degree or 60 credit hours. You have to, in order to apply, you have to complete the Maine Criminal Justice Academy alert test and also a physical fitness test. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. But so the way that the process works is you apply, it's sent to the natural resources. They'll look at the application and decide whether the application will move on based on the qualifications I said before. After that, then you'll have an oral board interview, generally it's with the lieutenants, or it could be with someone else with the Forest Service. But you're going to have an interview where you go and they're going to ask you questions, and based on your questions, how you answer and that, then they're going to decide whether you've moved on. Some of the questions that they ask are based on commitment and independence, judgment and logic, communication skills, applied knowledge, decision making and decisiveness, tact and diplomacy, motivation, leadership, and problem solving. So they'll ask you.
So they might ask you scenarios.
Yeah.
About
definitely.
that. How would you take?
What
tell
would
me
you do in this situation?
Exactly. What is the situation?
How would you handle this scenario? Stuff like that. When they're going to look for your judgment, your character, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
After that, if you make it past that, then they're going to do a background investigation. Obviously, there's being in law enforcement, there's quite a few disqualifiers. But if you have a clean record and you make it through that, you'll have a polygraph. You pass your polygraph examination, then you'll have an interview with the colonel. And if you pass your interview with the colonel, then you'll be hired. So it's generally, I would say the process is a little bit longer than 6 months. Kind of you do each process 1 month at a time because everyone has to go through it. So, but so it's kind of a long process, and you kind of get down like, oh, I haven't heard anything, but it just takes time being in law enforcement and checking off all the boxes and everything. The background investigations and stuff like that takes time.
So it's really patience.
Yeah.
And you really have to know how to apply those skills, because when you get in situations, you need to know how you can take that in and put it into what would be a good result that they're looking for.
Exactly. And one of the things that I can't emphasize enough is the PT test. I mean, I feel like we lose a lot of our candidates because of the PT test. So that entails a 1-minute push-up test, a 1-minute sit-up test, and a 1.5 mile run. So, for instance, in the male category, if you're between ages of 20 and 29, you'd have to do 33 push-ups in a minute, 40 sit-ups in a minute, and you'd have to do your 1.5 mile run in under 11:31. So, I mean, it's stuff that's definitely achievable, but you're not just going to walk in off the street and typically pass that. You're going to want to practice and
so it's really something you need to prepare for a period of time.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I always tell students, too, when it comes to those physical tests, if it's 40 sit-ups in a minute, what was it again?
40 sit-ups in a minute.
40 sit-ups in a minute. Don't do 40 sit-ups, practice 40 sit-ups in a minute. Practice 45 sit-ups in a minute. So, it just makes a difference that you don't just cut it off there, because a lot of people have lost out and had to retest because they made 39 sit-ups in a minute trying to go into law enforcement. It happens all the time,
right? You mean they have to do 33 push-ups and they do 30 just
right.
because you get there and you're nervous and you run out of your adrenaline and things like that. So, you mean, it's one of the things that going into it you have to do a PT test, so it's best to practice, and you don't want to miss out on a career because you couldn't do 33 push-ups or something like that. So it definitely practice that, and that's a lot of the people that we lose is because of the PT test. They go in and they can't pass it, and as soon as you fail that or you don't complete it before you apply, then your application is not going to be accepted. So
Right. So do they have like ongoing tests that they do throughout the careers of law enforcement that they expect? I mean, have you had to do anything since that time yet where you've had to prove yourself physically?
Our agency does we have to do the test where we do push-ups and sit-ups, and we do a pack test based on our fire qualifications to get our red card. So we don't have to do the 1.5 mile run, although some people choose to do that way. But generally, you do the push-ups, sit-ups, and the pack test, and that's incentive, and you can get a stipend if you pass that.
Okay. So we didn't really, we haven't touched base on it, but I know that sometimes there are opportunities in different agencies to do like a job shadow. Do they, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do they offer a job shadow with Maine Forest Service? Did you have a chance to job shadow someone? Do you think that is a possibility, or should they maybe just check with the lieutenant, so to speak?
Yeah, we do ride-alongs with people that are interested.
Okay.
If they really have an interest in the job and they want to learn more, then we will pick them up and take them for a few hours and show them the aspects of the job and stuff like that, and they can ask questions. But they ask for that, and then our supervisor approves that.
Oh, I see. Okay. So we just reach out through those means to, if any of our students might be interested. I know we have done that before, with people that wanted to, see what it was like to actually be on the job. And I think whenever you're looking at a lifelong career, I mean, there are jobs out there and there are careers out there. And so you want to make sure that it's a good fit, because you're putting in a lot of time and a lot of energy into something that might take you away from your family a little bit, and you want to be able to make sure it's something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't mind taking people for ride-alongs and show them. I mean, if they go on a ride-along and they hate it, at least they know, and they're not going to apply and not waste their time, but they're not going to go through a process that then they're not going to like the job at the end.
Exactly.
So if they can go through and see something beforehand and say, hey, I really like this, then it gets them even more motivated to continue with the process.
Right, and so then maybe they'll come back and work a little harder to get ready for that physical test. So now we know that obviously it takes a period of time, for the application process. Now, is there a place where they should go to? I mean, I come from the old school, I guess. I'd like to write my applications out, but is the application process actually electronically done online?
Yes.
Do you know?
I'm not 100% for sure, but I believe that there's the option of mailing it, or you submit it right online. And it's really easy. You just download it, the application, you can fill it out right on your computer and then upload it, and it will be sent right there.
So from UMM, we should take a little look at that. If anybody is interested, we could go out and actually look at the site and see what the requirements are of the application, so we can make sure that people are preparing for that.
Yeah, and if they go on Maine.gov, or even if they just Google Maine Forest Service, it'll pop up and it'll go to the state website, and there's a minimum qualifications testing and the evaluation process is posted right there. It also has salaries, our mission statement and stuff like that. So that stuff will be good. They can go on and look at it on their own if they have any questions.
Okay. So is there how long does it take to be considered for a year-round position? I mean, obviously you've got to have some. So did it take you a period of time? Because, I think as I recall, you were pretty lucky and got in pretty quickly, which is really great. That doesn't always happen for people.
Yeah. So, I was fortunate when I graduated the Forest Service hiring. So I applied, and I was fortunate enough to get hired almost a year after I graduated. Doesn't always happen, because if we're not hiring, then you can't apply. So, it's one of those things that generally is posted on our Facebook page. If you check Maine.gov, there's a jobs and employment. Whenever we're hiring, that's posted in that section there with the other state agencies. So it's kind of, sometimes you have to have patience, because it's happened before where an agency hasn't hired for 2 or 3 years, and that can be tough.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit about advancement opportunities. Do you want to just touch base again on that a little bit and just kind of review again what levels there are? I mean, we know there's Ranger 1, there's Ranger 2. I mean, what else is kind of up there?
So there's field rangers like I am. There's sergeants, which would be my immediate supervisor. A lieutenant, which would be sergeant supervisor and kind of oversees the whole region. And then the chief ranger, the colonel of the Forest Service, who oversees everyone. So you mean that the state of Maine is broken up into 3 regions: the northern region, central region, and southern region. I'm part of the central region. There's 3 districts within that region, so there's three sergeants, and then there's one lieutenant that oversees everything there. So you mean it? There's not a lot of sergeants, but there is opportunity to promote and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you require rangers to attend a law enforcement academy, or does the Forest Service train their rangers within their own organization?
So we rangers will go to a academy at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy. Well, they'll get their law enforcement training, and then we also do a academy with just kind of focused more on the Forest Service. So you mean new rangers are required to attend and successfully complete a 12 to 18 week law enforcement basic school, and then a 10-week advanced forest ranger post school, and then upon graduation of their post school, you'll be on probation for 6 months and then up to a year until you're out on your own. And during the first 6 months, you're going to be with a field training officer. So another ranger is going to train you, and it's a lot of the on-the-job training that you're gonna learn and see.
So is law enforcement, when you go down to the academy, is that like a 10 or 12 week session do they usually have? Or is it different for different groups?
Generally it depends on which academy they go to.
Yeah, okay.
Stuff like that.
So it depends on what academy and what agency they're with. Okay. So what, we talked a little bit about it, but what personal characteristics can you touch base again on that would, do you look for in a ranger?
I think that kind of like we talked before, being flexible, being honest, integrity, their character. You mean in law enforcement work, you have to be an honest person. There's certain powers that you're entitled, you're given to enforce laws and things like that, and you need to be honest. You need to have good integrity. Things like that are going to, a lot of it's just based on character.
Right, because a lot of times, I'm working with the public and things like that. As a person that is in the public, I want people I know in law enforcement that I can trust.
Exactly.
And so when law enforcement comes to my door or I see them out there, I want it to be somebody I can trust.
Yeah.
And that's the type of people that we need to be applying for these jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, of course, the all-important question here is we've all got to have an income when we, actually are out there working. And it's important to, our family and our future of what kind of amenities and opportunities are available. So within the Maine Forest Service, what is the pay range like for a ranger? And what kind of benefits and things like that do you get?
So this is also posted online with the hiring packet. A forest ranger is at grade 19. Salary specification 25, for the law enforcement 28-day special retirement. A forest ranger starts out at $42,723.20, and they can work their way up to $56,780. And then there's also like overtime and things like that that can be added to that. So that's kind of basically what the pay range is. But then there's salary and benefit packages, health, dental, life insurance, paid vacation, paid sick leave, deferred compensation programs. We have a clothing and telephone allowance. We're issued a uniform, our gear. So anything that you use is going to be issued to you from your agency. They issue your uniform, they issue your duty belt, your vest, things like that. You have a patrol vehicle that's issued to you. That's great. You mean in the morning when I sign on, I'm in my dooryard. At night, I sign off at my house. I mean, it's kind of it's a perk of the job. You have a state vehicle. You have a patrol vehicle. It's kind of one of the things that a lot of people say that's pretty cool to have. I mean, you're issued a vehicle, and that's what you use.
And they pay for your gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not paying for your gas.
You mean that's a lot of times you're working out of your truck, that's your office.
Mm-hmm.
We can do everything right from our truck that we can do at our office. So that works great.
And so I think, the other thing to note here with this is that when you are, as our listeners today are thinking about job opportunities, when you're looking at those jobs and the pay ranges, you also need to be considering in what is the benefit package worth? Is there retirement? Is there health? Is there dental? Those type of things can easily range to $12,000, $15,000 a year than an organization or agency would pay. And I know that's the same with the university. So you have to take those into consideration too when you're looking at, is the salary worth it? And you also mentioned, like overtime pay. So you're not professionally expected to do all this overtime and everything else without getting compensated for it. I know for myself, I'm a professional employee, so I'm paid for 40 hours, and if I work 60, I work 60. But for yourself, you're actually paid that overtime.
Yeah. So if we go over our hours in a week, then we're compensated for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're called out, you're gonna get paid overtime, stuff like that. You mean I think for me, you mean health insurance, dental, stuff like that is good. I mean that's worth its money in itself, even if the salary may not be the highest. You mean dental and health insurance is, if you're going to pay for that on your own, then that can get pricey. And
actually at $42,000 starting pay, that is a good starting salary. When you think about a baccalaureate, graduate coming out of an institution that for a service position is a very good salary plus those benefits. That's great. So what do you think, what should an individual think about before applying for working with the Maine Forest? Service, just kind of overall. What should they think about?
I think you definitely have to you got to be committed to law enforcement. That's part of the job. You're going to be enforcing laws. You're going to be a firefighter. Those are the two big things that our agency does, and you got to be committed to those two core missions.
Okay. And I think also, and two, just like we were just talking, look at the salary, look at the benefits, compare it to what other people are doing as well. I think that's really important. So tell us again what the website address is to submit that application, Brian, if people are interested.
So if you go to maine.gov, you can go right there, and there's a job and employment section that you can click on, and when we're hiring, that will be posted in there. I believe that our hiring process just closed, so it'll be a little bit before we start hiring again, but we will be hiring again in the future.
And I look at that as really kind of a benefit, because if people are interested, now's the time for them to investigate what that application process is, what the testing process is going to be, and they could actually be starting on it now and trying to pursue potentially a ride-along, to make sure that it might be a good fit for them. So it really, even though the application process is closed per se right now, it's an opportunity still for people to get out there and start thinking about it for the future, so
definitely.
that they're ready to go when it opens back up.
They can go out and see what is required, and if they don't have all the credits, then start working towards that. Start working on the PT tests, things like that are going to help them. Anything that they can get to help them before they get there.
Sure. So, do you have any final advice that you'd like to share today with our listeners?
Be flexible. One thing I didn't mention is you may have to relocate. You're going to get hired, and you're going to have to go to patrol that's open. So you got to be flexible to move to northern Maine or move to southern Maine, move to central Maine. Wherever there's an opening, that's where you're going to be hired. And you may have to live there for a little while until you can transfer to another position. So just be flexible. You're going to be working in law enforcement. Keep your nose clean. don't get a criminal record, and you'll be fine.
Well, great. I want to take this opportunity to thank Brian for joining us today and representing the Maine Forest Service here on the UMM Engage Clipper chat room. And I want to thank our listeners, too. Please join us each Thursday at 4 p.m. throughout the semester. Next week, we will be talking with Cassie Cross, UMM alumni who graduated in 2012 with a Bachelor of Science degree majoring in Environmental Studies. Cassie is now working as the Performance Integrity Senior Manager for Athena Health in Belfast. So for more information, please feel free to email me at jscribner@maine.edu. This is Joellen Scribner, and you are listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day.